It was 2 years ago that Ben Stein and I decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, the highest peak in Africa. Upon our descent, a South African friend of ours suggested we stayed in Tanzania for a few more days and meet with the people from the African Wildlife Foundation. In the Tarangire National Park, we spent 2 days with Dr. Bernard Kisoi, the African Wildlife Foundation's lion research scientist. It was here we became aware that 80% of people employed by the organization are African. Bernard has attached radio collars to lion in 6 study groups in order to obtain detailed data on the lion movement patterns. With a better understanding of the lion-human conflict, conservation efforts can be made more focused and effective.
We learned that lion populations have declined from a high of 100,000 2 decades ago to just 23,000 today.
It was an eye-opening introduction for us, and we were both intrigued and impressed by the organization's conservation effort in Africa that has spanned the last 4 decades.
We left Africa inspired. Not only had we successfully made it to the summit of Kilimanjaro, but we had also been introduced to the African Wildlife Foundation, and we were determined to try and apply what we had learned to make a difference. Back in Washington, we met with Craig Scholey and his wonderful staff about our future involvement with the African Wildlife Foundation. Shortly thereafter, we were officially named AWF Goodwill Ambassadors. As newly appointed Goodwill Ambassadors, Veronica and I went on our first official trip with the African Wildlife Foundation. As 2009 was declared the year of the gorilla by the UN, we thought it was appropriate to begin our mission in Rwanda.
They informed us that they had identified 9 heartlands across Africa, far larger than any park or reserve. An African heartland combines national parks and local villages, government lands and private lands into a large, cohesive conservation landscape that often transcends international borders. We drove through one of the heartlands known as Maasai Steppe, where we visited Manyara Ranch, a land trust set up to protect an important migration corridor. In addition to its importance as a corridor, the ranch serves as a laboratory to study the factors driving habitat degradation and human-wildlife conflicts. In Manyara, we visited an old, dilapidated school, miles away from any road. We then visited the brand new, centrally located boarding school that AWF and their partners had just constructed. Here, 500 Maasai children receive an exemplary education. This project speaks to an African Wildlife Foundation's philosophy of empowering communities through education, of looking beyond traditional methods of conservation for sustainable long-term solutions.
They have built new water wells in each village, and the goal is to bring electricity to all of the homes in the surrounding area.
We were hooked, and in my mind, I felt like I was at the start of a lifelong journey.
In the Virunga Mountains, AWF was integral in the development of the world-class Sabinho Silverback Lodge. In the Virunga Mountains, tourists pay top dollar for the privilege of trekking mountain gorillas. When local communities benefit from the tourism, they have more incentive to protect the wildlife. This is one of AWF's key goals that they strive towards. AWF helped arrange financing with USAID so that interest payments will only be triggered by income, and the local community owns a large equity stake in the project. It is a precedent that could open the way for conservation tourism development across the entire continent. After our stroll through the village sitting right below the lodge, we realized how much the locals have benefited already from the $300,000 of profits after only 2 short years since the lodge has been opened. It was 5:30 a.m. and we were up and going.
Another day.
I thought there would be a very slim chance for us to find the mountain gorillas, as there are only about 720 of them in the world today, spread between Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and Rwanda. But the rangers of the national park have a great system in place for keeping track of the gorillas' whereabouts, and after 2 hours we got lucky. For the first time in our lives we saw a mountain gorilla, and it was magical. Yes, it was scary at first, you get so close to them, but after a while you realize they are peaceful creatures. The babies are very playful, the silverback, always the largest male gorilla in the group, is very calm and ever observant. He sits like a king. You can feel his physical power as he breaks the bamboo shoots, but his facial expressions are tender, the perfect leader. We had 3 days with 3 different mountain gorilla groups. They all behaved differently. One of the people who shared the most incredible stories with us was AWF's own Craig Scholey. He is a wildlife biologist and conservationist renowned for his work with the International Mountain Gorilla Project in Rwanda. As mountain gorillas do attract a lot of tourists, Craig fought hard to protect the gorillas from overexposure. He helped implement the rule where a visitor's group cannot exceed 8 people, and the time spent with gorillas cannot be longer than 1 hour per day.
It was an unforgettable experience for Ben and I. In conclusion, African Wildlife Foundation has worked with the International Gorilla Conservation Program for decades. They have numerous initiatives, from funding anti-poaching patrols to helping shape government policies related to the protection of the mountain gorilla. Please join us in supporting the African Wildlife Foundation